Well, joining us now, Manish Tewari, Lok Sabha MP of the Congress from Punjab. Thank you very much, Manish, for being with us. Captain meeting Amit Shah, is it your belief that he has definitively been lost to the Congress?
Well, Captain Amrinder Singh has spent long years in the Congress party. He was Chief Minister for 4.5 years. And if he has gone to call on the Home Minister, there must be a valid and cogent reason. So why don't you ask him that question? I think he would most happily answer it.
No, but Manish, is there a sense that he is now, the context has to be looked at very clearly? This is not just a courtesy visit, is it?
Well, Vishnu, then let me try and explain the context to you very clearly and succinctly. And I would appreciate if you would bear with me.
Go ahead.
In 2017, when the people of Punjab voted the Congress into power and gave it 77 MLAs, what was the mandate or what was the message the people of Punjab were sending? That they wanted the security of the state, they wanted the safety of the citizens, and over and above that, they wanted political stability. And the reason why I delineate these three markers is primarily because whenever the political stability of Punjab has been disrupted, people of Punjab have paid the price in blood. Between 1980 and 1995, over 35,000 people were martyred at the altar of nationalism to protect the unity and integrity of India. A majority of them were congressmen. People like us and many of my colleagues had to pay a personal cost for preserving the unity and integrity of our country. So therefore, under those circumstances, in a border state like Punjab, which has a very unique and a peculiar milieu, whenever political stability gets disturbed, the only people who feel happy is our Western neighbor and especially their deep state, the ISI.
No, I understand this, Manish.
Emboldened that they are after the success in Afghanistan that they've installed the Taliban government out there.
So is he talking about the potential role of the ISI with the Home Minister of India, or is he looking for potential support should he form his own political formation? Or heaven knows, is there a possibility of a tie-up with Amrinder Singh in the BJP, because we all know he cannot go with the Akalis?
Vishnu, unfortunately, with great respect, media at times cannot get beyond the immediate. You know, it's like instant gratification. I started out by saying that Captain Amrinder Singh is more than competent to answer as to why he met the Home Minister. So therefore, neither am I going to second guess him, neither am I going to answer on his behalf. I think those answers you should seek from him.
But fair enough. I take that. I accept that. You don't know the answers, perhaps, and therefore the question you believe is unfair. But is it not an incredible setback to the Congress party in the context of what we see now in the Congress in Punjab?
Well, as I told you earlier, that for me, much more germane than electoral considerations is the peace and the calm of Punjab, yes, which was a very hard-won cost. We must understand that in Punjab for the past 1 year, there has been a sustained farmers' agitation against the NDA BJP government's farm laws. Through winter, the second wave of COVID-19, sweltering summer, farmers have been agitating on the borders of Delhi.
Yes.
And last thing which the people of Punjab want is that a government that they had voted to power, yes, with such overwhelming numbers, such an overwhelming mandate, had reposed their faith in the Congress in Punjab when during the Lok Sabha elections, when we didn't do very well across the country. The last thing they want is people's squabbling for things which are extremely, if I may use that word, irrelevant for the people of Punjab. So therefore, under those circumstances, whenever you have a situation, and I have lived through that situation, having cut my teeth on the trench lines of the fight against militancy and terror in Punjab, whenever there is political instability, whenever you have any subversion of the peace in Punjab, the price for that is paid by the people of Punjab.
Okay. Manish, when you talk about instability in the Congress in Punjab or in Punjab, do you believe that that instability will take place as a result of a potential three-way split. Navjot Sidhu going way, Chief Minister Channi another way, and Captain Amrinder Singh possibly a third way. We don't know which way he will go.
Well, at this point in time, I think it should be the foremost priority of everybody, every congressman, to ensure that the mandate of the people is respected and stability and sanity is restored both to the state and to its governance. These internecine battles, this prolonged sulking, I don't think augur well for the state, and definitely people of Punjab are not approving what is happening, and therefore we had 4.5 years of political stability.
Okay.
The boat was absolutely stable, and unfortunately people who were charged with the remit of looking at Punjab, they did not grasp the magnitude and the uniqueness of this border state, especially when you have the Chinese who've intruded into Ladakh, as I earlier mentioned, the situation in Afghanistan. And this whole thing could have been handled much, much more better, much, much more elegantly, and in a far more graceful manner.
And so you are therefore referring to Priyanka Gandhi Vadra and Rahul Gandhi. Those are the people with the remit of looking at the Congress in Punjab. And therefore you believe that they made a mess of things, right?
Well, I am not taking any names and I'm not indulging in finger pointing. As I understand the Congress party, and I have been a part of it for the past 40 years, there are people in the All India Congress Committee who have specific responsibility. And therefore, we saw two paradigms play themselves out. A paradigm where for 4.5 years, when Mrs. Asha Kumari was in charge of Punjab, where you had stability, you had also people's grievances being listened to. And unfortunately, we are seeing the specter of instability since the May of 2021.
Okay. So, given the latest twist that we are seeing, whether it's with Navjot Sidhu or Amrinder Singh now, and concerns raised by many senior leaders, for example, Kapil Sibal spoke earlier on today, Ghulam Nabi Azad has a series of concerns today as well. Would you agree that the Congress crisis going beyond Punjab is now at one level existential?
Well, the stability or the consolidation of the Congress party is very essential for the survival of the idea of India. And especially at a point in time when 7.5 years into the term of this government, the sheen of the NDA-BJP government has completely worn off. People are looking for an alternative, they are searching for an alternative, and at this point in time, it is imperative that we get our act together and we measure up to the expectations and the aspirations of the people. The fact is that we've had 2 consecutive Lok Sabha defeats. The fact is that we have not done well in the previous round of assembly elections. The fact is that we can do exceedingly well even now with all the turbulence if we get our act together. Okay. An imperative in getting that act together is to ensure that all those people who have the experience, who have the sagacity, who have the political wisdom of having handled things over a period of time, the members of parliament from states like Punjab, most of them who have lost family members in the fight against terror, have spent long years in the Congress party. Those are the hands that you need to bring on deck. And similarly in other states, because otherwise we would be failing the people of India.
Okay. So do you therefore share the belief of Kapil Sibal, who earlier on today said this, and I quote him, in the Congress there is no elected president now. We don't know who is taking decisions. Is that succinctly put? Do you agree with him?
Well, as I said earlier, the fact remains that we need to measure up to the expectations of the people. We need to do everything which is necessary to be able to ensure that 2024 turns out different from 2019 and 2014. And therefore, some of the concerns which had been articulated last year, in the August of last year, remain germane even now. And therefore, if those concerns are addressed, I am sure the party would come out cohesive, the party would come out strengthened, and the party would be able to measure up to the expectations and aspirations of the people.
How big is the group of 23 now? Is it much more than 23? That number was coined by, perhaps a few people People said it's 23 plus. I'm asking you, to the best of your understanding, is it much larger now? People who have problems with the leadership and all of what we've discussed?
Well, first of all, the nomenclature G23 was a figment of the imagination of the media. It has nothing to do with people who had articulated certain concerns. You must understand that the whole thing is not about numerals. The whole thing is about an idea to ensure that the party emerges stronger, the party emerges more cohesive. Nobody ever looked at numbers. Nobody was getting into a numerical game. There was a canard which was deliberately spread as if those people who had voiced those concerns were against the leadership. Let me unequivocally, clearly reiterate once for all, nobody is questioning anybody's leadership. Nobody is questioning anybody's supremacy or their numero uno position within the organization. But yes, there are concerns that till the time we do not, have a roadmap, we are not able to get a cohesive narrative in place, I am afraid we will not be able to measure up to those expectations or to those aspirations which people have of us today.
Now, Ghulam Nabi Azad in a letter has asked to Sonia Gandhi, has asked for a CWC, a Congress Working Committee meeting, as a first and immediate step. Would you agree that if Rahul and Priyanka Gandhi Vadra need to start dealing with the problem, they need to start listening to the problems expressed by many leaders, and perhaps as a first step, a CWC meeting is imperative?
Well, Mr. Ghulam Nabi Azad has now been a member of the Congress Working Committee, if I recall, going back to 1987. So he's been a member of the Congress Working Committee for over 4 decades. So if in his wisdom he has asked for a meeting of the Working Committee, I'm sure there must be certain concerns on his mind which he feels that the Working Committee is an appropriate forum to discuss it at.
Manish, this is something that Amrinder Singh had tweeted out a couple of days back, and I'm asking you that question. Is it your belief that Navjot Singh Sidhu is stable?
Well, for me, politics has never been about personalities. But yes, I would definitely say that I'm extremely anguished and distressed at the way things have panned out, because I feel that the political stability of the state which I represent in Parliament, which I had represented earlier in Parliament, is very, very important for the security and the stability of the Indian nation. And therefore, if there is anything which is done which disrupts that stability, which has implications on the peace of Punjab, I don't think it is in national interest.
Manish, there is some breaking news coming in. There are reports now that Amrinder Singh is in Amit Shah's car and may be on his way to meeting the Prime Minister.
Well, those questions can be best addressed by Captain Amrinder Singh. I'm in no position to address those questions. As I earlier said, these are questions which you need to direct at him.
Does this shock you? I understand that you can't speak for Amrinder Singh. I'm asking you as a congressman, right? And is this something, this piece of news, Amrinder Singh in the car of Amit Shah on their way apparently to the Prime Minister as we speak, does that shock you?
Well, a former Chief Minister has called on the Home Minister. I do not know, what is transpiring or what has transpired. I'm sure when the former Chief Minister comes out from wherever he has gone, he would address you in a holistic and comprehensive manner.
Okay, now I just want to look at the Navjot Singh Sidhu angle a little bit more closely. Navjot Sidhu is apparently upset about the cabinet changes made by the new Chief Minister, Mr. Channi. He reportedly, he felt overruled in some controversial appointments which were made. And he decided to tweet out his resignation letter, which he'd sent to Sonia Gandhi without any consultation with the Gandhis at all. Do you believe that the party needs to now take disciplinary action against him?
Well, as I earlier pointed out, I have zilch interest in personalities. My only interest is on the implications of the actions. As I understand, the Pradesh Congress Committee President has a very clear remit, and that remit is to strengthen the Congress organization. It is up to the Chief Minister and his cabinet colleagues to run the government. those are parallel tracks. And therefore, the sanctity of those parallel tracks has to be respected. Nobody can exercise overlordship primarily because he or she occupies one position or the other. In the past 40 years that I've spent in the Congress party, in charge of various states, this distinction has always been clearly maintained, and that is and it is the cohesiveness and the cooperation between people who occupy these two august offices which ensures that the Congress party functions in a manner where it best serves the interest of the people. And therefore, for let's say whatever reasons somebody may have, if you act in a manner which has implications, as I earlier pointed out,
yes,
implications beyond the political,
yes,
in a border state like Punjab, then I think it is a matter of deep concern and grave anguish.
Is it true that, to the best of your understanding, that some of the political capital that Navjot Singh Sidhu enjoyed within the top bracket of the Congress, that's on the wane, that's apparently, going away, and that perhaps your top leadership no longer wants to give in to his demands? This is again buzz. I'm asking you about what people are talking about.
Well, Vishnu, you can keep raising the ghosts and I can keep slaying them. This speculation gets us nowhere. As I told you, for me, individuals don't interest me. Only actions which have broader implications on certain things which I hold are very dear and sacrosanct for the survival of my state, because as a border state, it is an existential question that we face every day, given the number of drones that come in laden with weapons and narcotics and hand grenades and AK-47s and small arms from Pakistan. So therefore, those are the things which concern me. I mean, these internecine fights or these factional fights have never interested me, and they do not continue to interest me. If I am distressed or anguished today, it is because I am apprehensive that or I have trepidations that this may have implications on that hard-won peace that we paid we paid for in our own blood. We don't want the Punjab to roll back to the days of 1980 to 1995.
And therefore, exactly along the lines of what you're saying, since it is nobody's hope or wish that Punjab is unstable for the reasons you have stated, do you believe that a plan B needs to be put in place as far as Punjab and the Congress is concerned to look at stability? For example, could it be a possibility that the Congress is considering two-time MLA Kuljit Singh Nagra or Ravneet Singh Bittu for a key role, with Navjot Singh Sidhu refusing to review his decision, the role that of Pradesh Congress chief?
Well, my only one concern is that political stability should be restored. We are looking at an extremely potential situation at the cost and at the risk of reputation. Events in Afghanistan, the way they have emboldened the deep state in Pakistan, let us not give them a troubled firmament to fish in. Moreover, what is also equally important is that Punjab, for the past 1 year, has witnessed a tautness in its social milieu because of the farmers' agitation. Mm-hmm. It's an extremely grave and volatile situation. And people who have been given responsibility need to behave in a responsible manner.
And a final question to you. The Chief Minister, Mr. Channi, finds himself in a very difficult situation. Now, he said earlier today that he will not be rigid on the appointments which have been made, because, I mean, some would say that that is an attempt, or it was an attempt earlier on the day, to placate Navjot Singh Sidhu. Do you see in the next 24 hours, perhaps a little bit more, that some of the controversial appointments, controversial to Navjot Singh Sidhu, could in fact be overturned?
Well, let me tell you, Mr. Charanjit Singh Channi is a good man. He is now the Chief Minister, but concurrently he is also one of my MLAs. He represents one of the 9 assembly seats which falls within my parliamentary constituency. We have worked very closely, and I have always found him to be an extremely reasonable and a grounded person. The Congress party has given somebody who's risen from the ranks a chance. And I think these attempts at creating political instability to a certain extent also represent a kind of a resentment because somebody who does not have pedigree has possibly been given a chance. I think he's a good man. He should be given a fair chance to be able to prove himself. And the last thing he deserves is this kind of instability.
All right, Manish, thank you for being very forthright, talking about the crisis in Punjab. And I think, everyone's hope is that there is some sort of stability. For the reasons that you've stated, thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you, Vishnu.